Hey everybody, I thought I would kind of explain or at least elaborate on some of the text notes that I gave you in an attempt to get some more funding for the interns. And this is the slideshow from the talk that I gave over the weekend. And I'm not going to go through every single aspect of this. A lot of it relates to just kind of philosophical, why we need new models in higher ed and that sort of thing. But it was an opportunity to kind of let everybody know a more comprehensive idea of what the CEET's about and what we're doing and what we're trying to get funded and things like that. And what was really interesting to me about it is that after I gave this talk, I seriously haven't been ambushed by people before because I was going so fast, because it's an Ignite talk, so it's a little bit faster. But there were a lot of people that really, really wanted to be in on this, that wanted to partner with us, that wanted to do different things, that wanted me to apply for the Google Certified Innovator, whatever. So it's really, I think we're really, really onto something here, because there are centers all over town. But every time I've been to 3 of them in the last week, and seriously, they're sad. They're just boring, and they're not driven by students at all. And so I think, just honestly, I think we're doing it better. But we need more space and more interns and things like that to really make a strong impact. And so, kind of running through, let me just sort through some of the other stuff that was related to just kind of impact talking. But what I was explaining to them is what the purpose of it was, the effect of crowdsourcing and how we can use that to manage interns. Interns, as I told them, or managing them is nowhere in my job description. The CEET's not even in my job description technically, but having a number of students that was great. I ended up with twice the number that I thought I was going to have at the beginning. So thank you, Joseph, and Matt, for making that incredibly possible for me. But it was overwhelming trying to figure out how to manage all that. And so I started, of course, turning to the technology to find a way to do it. And so what we were doing is using Google Forms for a skills inventory, because what I knew I wanted to do with them the first couple of months, all we were doing was spending money. That's really all we had to do. So they were researching all of these different tools and making recommendations and debating and negotiating back and forth about what we should buy. Well, that's done now. So now we can move on to other things. And one of the other things that I really wanted to do was offer their services and their skills to the whole institution. And like I said, there have been projects here and there that they have participated in, and I'll give you a list of those. But before I could even get them onto that, I had to make sure to find out what they could do and what they wanted to do, because what I was clear with them about is that you are not employees of this center. You're a student, and so you always need to be thinking about what you're learning and what you want to learn, in addition to just doing things that we tell you to do. And so what this allowed them to do is I took every single category of emerging technology, classroom technology, advanced technology, to try to find out what they can do among all of these things. And are they highly knowledgeable, somewhat knowledgeable, not at all, but they want to learn, or I could get hit by a bus tomorrow and never learn this and I'd be okay with it. So as what I was able to do with that information is break it down then further into different categories. So if I've got, for example, an instructor who calls the center and says, I am in a classroom with a smartboard next semester, I have no idea how to operate it, then what I can do is cross-reference the responses to the skills inventory with the student's availability. And I can find that, let's say, Hussein is highly knowledgeable about it, Shine is not, but he wants to learn. So I can find out when those two are scheduled to work together, hook them up with the instructor, and then off they go. So Hussein is able to kind of explain everything that's going on. Shine is learning at the same time, and then in the future he'd be able to go off and do that. And then that's another skill that he can, that's another skill that he can add, to his list of things on his resume. And a couple of other examples here, even things like augmented and virtual reality, all of the students wanted in on that. And so this allowed me to then figure out, okay, if you're somewhat knowledgeable, you're doing the initial research. If you're highly knowledgeable, then you're going to get together with the first 2 and start making product recommendations. And then the last 2 don't know anything, but as soon as the equipment comes in, you guys all get to play with it. So that's kind of the way that I was able to use this to not only make sure that things on campus got done, but that the students that wanted to learn different skills were matched with the people who already knew it. Project management was the first, really big thing here, because I had to make sure to break it down into, each of the different categories. We had IT projects, we had tool research. I can certainly give you access to any of this stuff if you want it. Just from a management perspective, it's fantastic. When you've got so much going on, it's just easier to give everybody access to things all the time. And then when they, fix the 3D printer and they were checking on Chromecast and trying to get instructions for that, so they can go ahead then and sign themselves up for different projects. They can cross it off when they're done. Identifying who to contact if they have a question, and then estimated impact was always an important part. Who's going to benefit from the work that you have? So then again, with these project sheets, I can break that down and say if somebody calls me and says, hey, I want to know the kind of impact that your office has had on fashion merchandising, I can find that very quickly and very easily and run through a list of projects that explain who was on what. So that's been really nice too. And then, of course, our dating thing, I don't have to worry about that. It's related more to the talk here. Let's see, a couple of other things that they've been doing. Again, one of the key points for this is that students are the ones who make the decision. So for every grant that we get, every little bit of money, they are involved in every step of the way. We come up with a list of things that are objectives and vision and mission tied into what we want to do, and then we go out and find tools related to that. And it's been interesting because this had been running on a Google Doc for a couple of months. They had been researching and then identifying, okay, what's the purpose of this? Is it available now, or is it still on Kickstarter? What's the cost? Who are the affected departments? Why should we get it? Whole series of questions they had to answer about each recommendation that they were making. And then once we actually got to having to spend the money, everybody was in a room together for about 5 hours and hashing it out and debating and going back and forth. And ultimately, I'm the one who has to make the decision. So if something, really appears to have a technical problem, or, we don't have a lot of faith that this is going to work in 6 months, then we have to go back and revisit it. But the vast majority of these decisions are made by the students. And that's something that a lot of other universities and centers like this don't allow their students really to do that. The other thing they do is make recommendations about different technologies. We're actually going to put their bios are already on the website, but we're going to have every semester there will be a sort of a focus area. So this one is financial literacy, tools related to that. And so they're going through and downloading all of the different apps and softwares and things like that help people understand financial literacy a little bit better. And then we'll go ahead and post that on the website, and their pictures will be next to their recommendations. And it's kind of like staff picks, when you go to different stores. And let's see, what else? We just talked about social media and how important that is. And these are the LibGuides that they're creating. So every time they do research these tools, for example, this is the presentation tools area. And so what they'll do is they'll research all of the different tools that you could possibly use to present a concept, either in a short 30-second elevator speech or a 2-hour keynote. And they research the ones that look pretty good, that are 508 compliant, that you're not going to get in trouble for using it or doesn't have a ton of ads. And they'll link up the actual tool itself and then link up an introductory video of the ones that they think could be really useful. This is available to everybody. It is open, it's on the library page for the university, but it's a public website. So I can tweet these things out and say, if you're looking for new options, related to presentations, take a look at this. Every 6 months, this is updated. The investment in especially ed tech is absolutely insane. It's off the charts. And these tools are all really great right now, but they may merge with other tools. They may go away. We really don't know with these startups what their long-term goal is. And so we need to go in every 6 months to make sure that these tools are still around, that they're still doing what we thought they were doing. So that's updated information. And that's one of the things that came out of a need in our education courses and in all of our courses, because once they're developed, that content pretty much sits there. You will have some instructors go in every semester and check and see if links are still available, but most of the time the content doesn't really update very much. And in technology, we can't have that. It's got to be updated all the time. And so this makes it much easier for instructors who, rather than say, I want you to learn Prezi, they can link up to this and say, I want you to learn something other than PowerPoint. Pick something out of this list that could be useful for you. Saves the instructor a lot of time. The other piece for them is, they had to learn how to find funding. We're completely funded out externally. I have zero budget coming from the university. So everything that we have comes from, money that we invest in. And this got a lot of attention too over the weekend, not just because every time they come up with a genius idea, and you guys know this, sure, in fundraising, but one of the common misconceptions about finding funds is you go out and find the money and then you try to make something fit with that. And really, I've certainly found that it's need to be exactly the opposite. You need to have a, what would I do if I had $1 million idea, and then by the time you actually find something, it's the grant's half written. And so what the students have to do is they have to write in, a project description. They have to identify the groups that are going to benefit, the community members that are not related to Fonbon, how they're going to benefit. But then it needs to be drilled down much, much further, because, the past year has brought about a number of different issues that we have to look at. And number one, we've always talked about how it supports the mission. That's why I was a pain in trying to find out if there was a strategic plan in the first place, because we want to make sure that that is lining up with what we're doing and we're not going in the opposite direction. The other important piece, though, this question has been so interesting, is does the project contribute, even in a very indirect way, to the problem of systemic racism or sexism? Because what's been interesting is, as myself included, as we filled this out, you have to explain it. You have to kind of go through and explain why it doesn't do that. And we've caught at least half of these things actually contributing in a way that we didn't even see coming in any way. It's been really, really interesting. This problem seems to be just so invisible, and having questions like that has really made it clear that we need to do better. And so other disadvantaged groups are part of it. Is there a way to get them involved? Are there any hazards to the environment that need to be considered? And it's not just, are we buying tools or playing with things that could harm the environment, but the companies we buy from, are they investing in ways that we wouldn't be supportive of if we had known a little bit better? So those are the kinds of detailed questions that we have to make sure that what we're doing is lining up with what we say we're doing. And then finally, when anytime anybody comes to me and says, hey, I found a grant that is for this amount of money, or do you have something that students could work with alumni on? Again, I can just pull that up. I can sort the columns and find something really, really fast, and the grants already have written. In addition to that, I just tell them we post things on the CEET website all the time. It's not just, first of all, being clear about the mission and vision of the place is always an important place to start. But then when we're talking about partnerships, if any local schools want to partner with us, and I got asked about a lot of this, I've got a couple of forms were filled out over the weekend. If you would like to work with us on a grant, if there's something that, as we're applying for something, if you think that you want to partner with us on, something related to STEM, let us know what your school's like, what your students are like, what you guys want to do. And then that makes it very easy, so that when we do find these opportunities, but it says you need a partner school district, or, well, again, I've got a list of people that I know I can call. If any of them want to be involved in guest speaking in our classes, there's a guest speaking form there. And then there's always the design lab, which our students did over the semester. They helped out Parkway or Pattonville School District in trying to come up with a new scheduling idea. And of course, donor recognition, that doesn't really apply here. Let's see. The other important piece is that they have to do e-portfolios for me. And this is that whole, you're not just a worker here, you're a student, so you need to think about, what you want to do when you're here. And so I make them fill out, first of all, a job search. They need to go and find a job that they think would be fantastic, take a look at the skills, and have a good idea of where you think you want to be by the end of your time here. And then they have to draft a 5-year plan. I make mine go an extra step and go to the Living Your Legend site, because so many students are engaged in majors or programs because it's what was expected of them, or it's what they feel like they need to do, or they feel like it's going to make money. This site, it has a toolkit that breaks it down a little bit further and asks them questions about, what do you really, really want? What is something that is really, really important to you? And then they can go back to that 5-year plan and modify it if they feel they need to. The other thing they need to do in their e-portfolio is write down the list of their program objectives. So if they're cybersecurity majors, what are all the things they're going to learn in that program? And then they also have to identify their own objectives. What are the things that they think, based on that 5-year plan, what are the things that they want to do, not just professionally, but personally? And what are the things that are already taken care of in the program, so you don't have to worry about those. But if there's anything left over, there, especially when it's technical skills or other skills that are just related to being a successful human being, what are the things that either you can take care of in the CEET, or do you need to go to our career counselor or to student fairs, or other areas that will help you make sure that you get the learning that you came here to learn? And that was an important piece too. And so this is just an example of a Google Slides that you can use. We'll use free tools, whenever we can for portfolios. And so they just have to break all of those things down. This is just their information on the website that doesn't really apply, and that's really lessons learned that relate to K-12. So that's just kind of a real quick breakdown, not real quick, 15 minutes, holy cow, but that's just sort of a breakdown of what I've been doing with the students and how I want to really expand those opportunities to all of the departments, the staff, the faculty. Everybody needs help with their tech at some point. And so we've got this group especially. They are wicked smart, and they're very, very driven, and they're so excited to be here, and they just want to absorb it as much as they can because they're not going to be here forever. And so they really want to make sure that they're getting a great experience, and I want to make sure I get that for them. Thanks.